Hey there. Happy Wednesday. So a couple weeks ago on my How to Light a Daylight Interior video, I got a comment saying, how would you do this with minimal gear? So today, I thought I'd break down how I'd go about doing that. And to kind of even take it a step further, I'm going to do it with not only just minimal gear, but using only one light. Because I think this is a situation that everyone at some point finds themselves in when they're first starting or they don't have a ton of lights, is like, I want to be able to shoot a whole scene in a room, but how do I do this only using one light? And maybe it's not even a really powerful light. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and to kind of show that and break it down, I shot a little short sequence for you here. So without further ado, let's roll the scene. So before anyone says anything in the comments, I don't know how to play piano, and yes, I am just smashing keys, okay? It just needed to look cool, okay? Anyways, so the first thing that I did in this scene, and the first thing that I would do in any scene, really, but more specifically, absolutely I'm gonna do, if this is a one light scene, is I'm gonna figure out where my sun is. So using my app Sunseeker, like I've talked about before, I'm just gonna, kind of go over the windows where the sun will be coming through and see when it's gonna be dropping into the windows here and when I wanna shoot this scene. This is crucial because the main thing when you're lighting with one light is you're not trying to light your entire space with that one light. What you're trying to do with that one light is polish up and kind of accent what the natural light is giving you, because that is going to be your main base. That is going to be your ambience, and that is going to kind of give you your room tone. And so for this one here, I knew that I wanted the sun to be still kind of overhead because I didn't want direct sunlight coming through those windows, because if the direct sun was coming through those windows, we'd have to ND down and it really exposed for that. And to be able to do that, we would then negate the benefits of having that extra, sun coming through the windows to give us that room tone, because when we ND down, we would lose all that exposure and probably be darker than when we started. So I wanted it to be, a little past noon, probably like 1-ish, 2-ish, where the sun is pretty high in the sky still, but it's getting a lot of that just ambient light just spilling in, and that's going to kind of give us our base and our room tone. So as you can see here, it's not super pretty, it's pretty flat, but it does give us a nice starting point to work from. Now we have this like little base of exposure. So the next thing that we're gonna do, and that I did here, is that you wanna try to get as much shape as you can on this scene without adding your light. Because when you add that light, that's all you can add. And so that's gonna be your last thing you're gonna add on, is that light. So now I'm gonna kind of walk around my house here, and I shut off all the house lights. I closed the windows that were on the other side of the room here, just to kind of darken down that left-hand side, kind of stop spill from overhead lights or other lights in the space, to kind of just get us more pools of shadow. Because again, that's how you create interest, that's how you create a three-dimensional image, is by having those points of contrast. And to get those, you need shadow and you need highlights. So after doing all that, we're left in a better spot. We have some shadow on our talent here. We have some pockets of dark and light here. Now it's still feeling pretty flat overall and a little bit murky, but we're gonna fix that with our light that we're gonna bring in next. For today, I was using a 200D from Amaran, which is a 200 watt daylight balanced light. I also used a spotlight mount on the front of it to kind of help control our spill, which is another really important point here, because you don't want to just put up a light with nothing on it and let it spill throughout the room, because then you're gonna pretty much just go and wash away all of the benefits you've just gained from, closing those curtains, turning off those lights, because now all your points of contrast are gone and this light is just spilling across the room and kind of just flattening out your scene. So you don't need a spotlight mount to do this. I just did it because that's what I have, but if you don't have a spotlight mount, you can use a bunch of other things to control your light. You can use a Fresnel with barn doors. You can use pieces of cardboard to use kind of like cutters and shape your light that way. You can use cinefoil, which is like black tinfoil almost, to again kind of shape that light. And you really just want to make sure you're being specific and purposeful? Yeah, purposeful, I think that's a word. Purposeful with where you're letting your light hit in the room. And then for positioning wise of it, I had it about 6 feet in the air, pointed a little bit down, just to get that, more realistic angle on the beam of light. And I had it set to about 20%, I want to say, so not very bright. You could do this with honestly probably like a 60 watt light, especially if you're, not seeing out any windows and you're having the light fixture indoors, which I did for this shot. And then this is what you're left with. With my close-ups, I have followed the same principles of trying to be as precise as possible with where my light is going, but obviously I had to change the position of it because it was directly in my shot if I did not move it. So for my close-ups, I moved that light just outside the window, honestly still right in front of the window, so the stand is in frame, but because of the lines on the window, you can't see it, and it works. And then I had it up kind of still on an angle, just about like where it was about to almost leave the frame of the window, but still be able to kind of come straight in and hit our piano and our talent, almost looking like it's kind of like a sun flare coming through the trees there. And now I know a lot of people don't like having those kind of, hot spots in frame. I'm also probably one of those people, like 80% of the time, but with this, when you're, only having one light available, you don't have rigging equipment, you kind of have to work with what you're given, and, there's just give and take. And so if you want to have the proper angle and exposure on your talent, you sometimes have to compromise with this light needs to be kind of in frame a little bit. And I don't think this feels super unnatural, and I think it still feels very nice. So I wasn't mad at this, but, if you're trying to be perfect when you're lighting with such minimal gear, you're probably not going to get anything that you're happy with at all. And so you just need to understand that there's going to be give and take with it. And so if you want one thing, you're going to have to sacrifice another. And in this case, I kind of had to have this light in frame if I wanted to be able to get the edge and the exposure on the talent that I wanted. And so that's what we went with, and I think it still looks overall really nice. Then I did add one other thing in these close-ups, and I think this is honestly the key and the most important thing when you're lighting with one light, because this pretty much gives you two lights, is I put a little white bounce card just on the piano up above, and I used it exactly how I used our Ultra Bounce in our How to Light a Daylight exterior video, is I just opened it up to the light source as much as I could with it still hitting the talent, and that gave us a nice soft key that wrapped around our talent, and it gave them a nice eye light. I don't know why I'm talking about this person like it's not me in the frame. It wrapped around my face very nicely, gave me a nice eye light, and really helped to kind of mix this hard and soft light and give us this elevated realism feel, which is something that I really strive to go for in a lot of my images when I have a bunch of lights and if I only have one light. And I think with using only one light, this is going to make it feel like you're not only using one light. So if you want to make things feel more polished, feel more higher budget, using a little bit of bounce card just right kind of on the same side as your key light, just to wrap that hard light coming from wherever your window or wherever that light is in frame around your talent's face is really going to help do that, and it's going to give you a huge bump in quality. So that's what I did for this close-up here, and this was kind of the final result of that, and I'm very happy with how it looks. With our other close-up of the hands, I did the exact same thing. I didn't move the light at all. It was just kind of still streaking across the piano. I moved that bounce card down just a little bit, just so to get it as close as possible to the hands, just to kind of help wrap that key over top of the hand, so we weren't getting too much contrast down there, because it was a little harder to get all the light down into where like the keys were. So by having that bounce card just down a little bit lower and angled down a little bit, it added that level across the hands just to kind of help balance everything out. And that was it for all of the lighting for this. Pretty simple one here, but to sum it all up, the sun is your best friend here. Use it to set your room tone, use it to kind of give you that natural ambience, and then use your light to kind of polish everything off and give it a little bit of an elevated realism feel. When you're using that light, make sure that you're controlling it and making sure that it's not spilling all over the place, and being very precise with where it's hitting and why it's hitting it, because that is going to give you your contrast and your points of interest and direct the viewer's eye to whatever you want them to see. Understand that when you're lighting with one light, you're not going to be able to get a perfect image, and if you want to get a good image at all, you're going to have to pick your battles, and that's expected. So don't try to get a perfect image. If you do, it's probably not going to work well. And finally, use some sort of white material to bounce that light around their face, give them a nice soft wrap, nice eye light, to kind of make it feel like you're using more than one light and give your scene a little bit of polish. Only having one light or no light doesn't mean you can't create a beautiful image and shouldn't stop you from trying. If anything, it's the opposite. It teaches you to do more with less. And I know for me personally, having that skill and doing these kind of practices with one light and seeing how polished I can get something with only using one light has benefited me exponentially in my career. So I really encourage you to this week, go out and try to light a 3-shot sequence with whatever lights you have mixed with the natural light and see what kind of looks you can achieve. And I think you'll be really surprised with what you're able to get. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If it wasn't, as always, my apologies. I tried my best. And I'll see you next week. Bye.
Yeah, now it's a